Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Whiskey at Work. And this is the one that Rob and I have been most excited for. We have been talking about this one for months, really since we first started this video series. This was the one we were looking forward to, and we're so glad it all worked out, because joining us is Master Distiller of Jack Daniel's Tennessee Whiskey, Jeff Arnett.
Thank you very much for having me. And I hope I don't disappoint after the build-up. That's pressure. Pressure right there.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Super happy to have him here. And today we just wrapped up the Loud American Jack Daniel's tasting, which happens during the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally, which is an event that Jeff comes out for. You've been here now 8 years.
8 times out of the last 10 years. But I think, this was really nice. The weather could have been slightly cooler. But everybody agreed that this is maybe their favorite one so far. So I think if we were looking to step it up this year, we accomplished that, which is awesome. Because we've got some people that have been to every single one.
And that's amazing, talking to some people out there that come up year after year and say, we wouldn't miss it. I mean, as soon as the tickets go on sale, they're the first ones to buy them.
Yeah, so as the people were coming through and getting the bottle signed afterwards, I had people coming to me and said, I've got the whole collection from the very first
that's amazing.
Awesome.
That really is cool. And what we do with these tastings every year is Jeff hosts the whole thing, and you get to sample. We had 7, I believe, today, right? 8 of them. We did all 8 because, well, we're going to talk about this in a second.
This that doesn't have a label.
It doesn't have a label, and that's what makes it even.
It actually does, but we just don't have it bottled yet. So.
Well, we can't show you yet.
Right? No.
If we could tell you about it, then we'd have to kill you.
Yep. We talk. We've done quite a few of these videos, and it always comes back around to a lot of questions we have about the process and how whiskey making works. And, we get on Google and we try to find the answers. And we're like, you know what? Let's save some of these questions for somebody that knows the answer. And we can get it right from the horse's mouth. And one question, I don't remember how it came up, but Rob, you had a good one about...
I wondered if the Jack Daniel's from when Sinatra was first drinking it, if that flavor profile differs to today.
There's been several things that have changed over the years. The process hasn't. Using the cave spring water, the grain bill, things of those nature. But if you look at the influences of character, the yeast is one of them. As technology, as science has improved, we used to use a jug yeast. And the culture that we use, that is Jack Daniel's yeast culture, a proprietary yeast culture, it's only used to make Jack Daniel's. We have a microbiologist who's gone through it, and just in looking at it over the years, it had been contaminated. It's sort of like having a sourdough starter yeast in your cabinet at home. Every time you open it up and pour out of it and backstock it, things in the air can land in it, so that can kind of make the culture drift. So I think we've probably gotten more consistent over time simply because we've taken some of the stuff in the yeast culture out of it that weren't making the correct character of Jack Daniel's. So that's one point of improvement. I think the other thing that's changed that to the betterment of Jack Daniel's has been the barrel. It used to be that you would rely on just a visual look at a barrel, and most people would class like a number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4 char is pretty industry standard when people look at it and just try to visually grade it. But we're a barrel maker too, and we don't just char our barrels, but we toast them. We're able to use literally like laser type technology to get in and scan inside the barrel that can see sees beyond what the human eye can see, and is able to assign attributes to the barrel. And then when you take all the attributes of what it can see and attach it to the barrel, and then you watch that barrel perform. Go through the course of years in your warehouse, and then what does the liquid taste like on the backside? Is that an optimal barrel? Okay. Or can we make adjustments? Should we, toast heavier, lighter, char heavier, char lighter to get to influences? So the barrel is all of your color. It's over half your flavor, so it's not a small part of what we do at Jack Daniel's. That's why we've chosen to make it for ourselves. So those are the two things. If we go back to Frank Sinatra's time, I think we're more consistent, and our barrel produces a much nicer balance of sweet and oak character maybe than it once did.
Do you have bottles of Jack Daniel's from that time period stored?
We do. So the oldest bottle of Jack Daniel's that we have was distilled in 1896, and it was bottled around 1914. It's still full and sealed. But I had a bottle. It was interesting. I had someone who found a bottle of Jack Daniel's that would have been distilled by Frank Bobo. It was bottled under Jimmy Bedford, and then it got returned back to me. And this was around the time that I hired Chris Fletcher in as the assistant distiller, who's Frank Bobo's grandson. And Frank was coming over. Frank's about 90 years old now, so his health is sort of hit and miss. He's still with us, and we're appreciative of that. But he was going to come over and do some photos and videos. So I thought it was never a more appropriate time that we would take something that was distilled, 30 some odd years ago, open it up, and us all try it. And of course, Frank actually he didn't tell us until after we tasted it, and we all said it's really good. And he was like, he was like, well, one bad bottle that I produced in 24 years, and we're about to open it. He was feeling the pressure. But no, it was awesome, and to be able to talk through the generations, that have people like Frank who started at the distillery in the 50s, who's still there. John Nolan is not someone who people necessarily know, but he was the quality control manager there for about 40 years.
Okay.
He's in his 90s now, still living. When we did the 150th anniversary liquid a few years ago, he got a sip of it, and he went and told somebody that he had been around Jack Daniels, for 60 years or so.
Right.
And he said, that's the best Jack Daniels I've ever tried. Because that makes me feel good.
Yeah,
you can't help but kind of swell up. That's me. But no, actually, that's 600 talented people putting their efforts into that bottle. So, but to hear local people who could easily say that it's not what it used to be, say it's never been better than it is today.
That's just such a prideful thing. Yeah, it does. The other question we had, and I think it's one that a lot of people, and you touch on it when you do the tasting here, is why isn't Jack Daniels considered a bourbon? That's one of the biggest questions we get when we do some of these videos, or people ask us about it. They say, we've read about it, it goes through the exact same steps, and then we come to something called the Lincoln County process, and people are like, well, what is that? Right.
One of the things that we have done over the years is we've fought to not be classed as bourbon.
Okay.
But of everything that's in the whiskey category, bourbon is clearly the closest thing to Tennessee whiskey. So if you look at, where we're made, our grain bill, how we're made, all the things of Jack Daniels pretty well aligned to bourbon, with the exception of the Lincoln County process. But the history of Tennessee whiskey goes back to after Prohibition. Tennessee was not able to distill again until 1938.
Okay.
So they were putting Jack Daniels back into the marketplace in the early 40s. And the predecessors of the BATF and the TTB, the agencies that kind of oversee our industry and write rules and enforce those, was called the Alcohol Bureau of Washington, D.C. So they actually wrote the Motlows, who were the nephews of Jack Daniels, who ran the distillery after he was deceased, and basically petitioned the distillery to change its labels and start calling Jack Daniels bourbon. And they basically contested it and said, because we do this process of the Lincoln County process, charcoal mellowing, they actually referred to it in those days as leaching.
Oh, okay.
So we have this leaching process, which is
Sounds
actually
way better now.
I know. Well, leaching kind of sounds like witchcraft stuff, so bloodletting and things. But that is kind of how it works. I mean, the whiskey does leach its way through the charcoal. It kind of wicks its way using gravity as a force to do it. But they said by virtue of this process of charcoal, we feel like Tennessee whiskey is different than bourbon, and that's what our Uncle Jack said, and we want to defend that.
Excellent.
So they traveled to Washington. They let the Alcohol Bureau taste the whiskey off the still, and after charcoal mellowing, and they actually tasted it versus bourbon whiskeys of the day. And they wrote us a letter in 1941 that basically says, we've tasted your product, and we're going to have to agree with you that you have a character that is not typical of bourbon whiskey.
Right.
Even though your process is conformant. So they actually put a statement in there. You have a character unique to yourself.
Oh, wow.
So, which I take that, to
well,
mean that's a good thing. We've never tasted anything like Jack Daniels before.
Right.
So, but we ended up winning that first time that we got pressure to call ourselves bourbon to basically put Tennessee whiskey as a classification. At least in our minds, it was a class.
Okay.
But there never was Tennessee whiskey that was identified in the federal codes. Bourbon was. But Kentucky years ago had to go back and supplement federal codes, and they wrote a law that defined what a Kentucky straight bourbon is.
Okay.
And it ensures that the product is made in Kentucky, that it's it conforms to the things that they didn't want people ripping off their state's name.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
They don't want a tanker being made several states away and being driven up I-65 for a few hours.
There we go.
It went through Kentucky
in a tanker for a few hours, and we're going to call it Kentucky bourbon now. So they kind of saw that was a potential to happen to them. So they kind of said, look, we're fine with people calling something Kentucky straight bourbon, but it needs to have been produced here.
Okay.
It needs to have been matured here for at least a time. So Tennessee had not done that, but we did that just a few years ago. And it unfortunately became a point of contention with some brands who felt like they didn't want Tennessee whiskey to have a standard. But 80-90% of the industry agreed that Tennessee whiskey had when people saw those words on the label, it had an expectation for how the process would go.
Perfect.
That had been framed by Jack Daniels. George Dickel was the other brand that people would be familiar with. But
Sure.
today there's probably about 8 or 10 of them, and they're not well known yet, but they have aspirations of being the next Jack Daniels. And,
well, good luck.
Yeah, and I always tell people, if you use good grains, you mellow it properly and put it in a good barrel. I mean, you're not going to be far from wrong.
Well, good point.
And I don't think you're going to taste like Jack Daniels. So
No.
the point of like reinforcing charcoal mellowing as part of Tennessee whiskey was not trying to make everybody taste the same.
Right.
The same way scotches don't all taste the same, but follow the same standards, and bourbons don't all taste the same, but follow the same standards. The Tennessee whiskeys won't either.
Gotcha.
Even under the guise of Tennessee whiskey, how many expressions did we try today?
Yeah, exactly.
And they were very different.
Very.
So even using one grain bill, you can produce a lot of different versions of that based on what people like.
Well, and that leads us to the most exciting part of today. I have been giddy about this since I found out about it, and then when I saw
that's
it,
not
it was,
far from it.
It is. I really have been. We learned about this, and once the tasting got started, and I was going through all of the pre-release stuff for this, and it popped up to me, and I'm like, that can't be right. There's no way they're bringing this out here when it's not going to be ready, until this fall.
Yep.
And then, damn, they brought it out here. This is Jack Apple, and it is going to be in stores this fall. And you said outside of the people in Lynchburg, the first ones to try it in a group setting like this, right?
We have tasted it within our company,
Okay.
which we feel like we've got some expertise.
Yes.
in products like this.
Sure.
So
No,
we started
take your
there.
word for it.
Yeah, we started there. I made sure that we were happy with the formulation, and then we did do a distributor announcement.
Okay.
So we had our distributors from across the people who work in the industry
Yes.
who sell Jack
Yep,
Daniels
yep.
had a chance to try it, and we got their impressions of it because certainly we need their support.
Oh,
And Brian
absolutely.
was like, make sure that people
Yes.
feel good about it. But this is the first consumer group on a broad scale that's had a chance to try it. Was today.
I can't believe
So the
like-
100 people are out under the
Yeah.
tent. Suffering through the heat, they got the benefit
Oh,
of saying,
they
"Hey, I was
did.
among the first to even
I
try
honestly
this."
can't
So it was
believe he
great.
didn't drink all of it.
It was just sitting there holding myself back. I mean, I got to be cool about it. I mean, it's Jeff Arnett. I can't just get fanboy over here, which I kind of did. But yeah, this is the first taste, and that's all I'm going to be drinking, Jeff. It really is. It's fantastic. It doesn't have that super sweetness that a lot of other whiskeys that are flavored has.
That-
you still get
The apple.
the Jack Daniels.
You get,
I mean, you get the
You
Jack.
get the essence of the whiskey,
Yes.
but you also get the apple.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's not overly sweet.
Nope, not at all.
And making honey and fire, you kind of learn as you go. We felt like honey was a really good lead for us, and it was simply because so much of the Jack Daniels character. Honey's not an imposing flavor.
Right.
So when you tasted it, there was no doubt about it. You could taste the Jack in it. Cinnamon was a little bit harder because cinnamon is a very imposing flavor.
Yes. Oh, it
But,
is.
the opportunity to deliver a true cinnamon, Ceylon from Sri Lanka, the true stuff, in a Jack Daniels format, making it smooth. Competing with a brand that was, tastes like heaven, burns like hell, just to be able to leave the hell out of it, just
Right.
to make it good to drink.
Yes.
Easy to drink, higher proof, lower sugars. To me, that's key. Not necessarily at the moment you're drinking it, it's about the next day.
Yes,
You know,
yes,
that-
exactly.
I say you'll have similar nights but better mornings.
Hey, there's your slogan for it, right?
on the
Similar
Tennessee
nights
Fire.
but better
Absolutely,
mornings.
yeah, absolutely. Similar nights but better mornings. But yeah, with apple.
Is that trademarked? Remind me to check that when we get back.
But definitely when it came to the Tennessee apple, there was an opportunity. If people are going to complain about products like this, it's that they're too sweet. And
Yeah,
some of that
exactly.
you accept that it has to be too sweet to some to be sweet enough for others. So you're trying to
Right.
bridge a gap between two groups of people and what they want. But the apple, I felt like it really shined without much sugar. So this is, of all the things we've done so far, this is on the lower end of sugar.
Right.
You definitely get that sense.
Yes, you do.
The apple is there. You get the Jack there, just slightly sweet. I always encourage people to be creative. Just know,
Right.
know your limits. Don't overconsume.
Exactly,
But
but have a great
but
time.
hopefully, what you're finding, we went from 3 products to 10 at Jack Daniels, and we've tried to be thoughtful about it because we don't want the portfolio to be huge.
Right.
So each member of the lineup needs to justify its existence. There needs to be a reason for it. And Apple, I think clearly there's a reason for it. And I think I expect it to do well. And we've got more to come.
I don't know how
That's
to
really
count.
what's driving interest in whiskey right now. There's so many people looking at whiskeys, even for brands like Jack Daniels. Most people know our black label, and they'll kind of look at you. Even the most loyal of fans say, "Hey, I've tried this. What's next?"
What's coming next?
Yeah, I was just going to say, you've let us in,
Yeah,
let us on.
you know,
This,
I would tell you
Yep.
that I would say where we are right now, the fastest growing form of American whiskey is rye, and we were a little bit late getting into rye, and that was simply because, unlike some brands who bought liquid from an existing distiller who was already into the rye game early, we just simply said we don't want to buy somebody else's liquid and put our name on it. So we need to be, we need to be patient to make something different, and and make it unique and uniquely us. We needed it to be mellowed. We needed, some things to be checked off to say this is a Jack Daniel's take on rye.
Okay.
As a category, and we're up to like number 2, but we're 6 or 7 years behind the brand that led.
Right.
So we're playing catch up. So I mean, part of this next year will be we want more emphasis on rye because we know loyal Jack Daniel's people who don't even know we make a rye. So we've got to answer that and say, hey, if you're,
How loyal they are.
yeah, well, yes. Well, people who've told me they've drank Jack Daniel's their whole life and had no idea we had started making a rye whiskey yet.
Okay.
So I think that's part of it. Was we want to make sure that we get awareness of the products we already have out there. Apple will be a huge focus for us. We're continuing to work on barrel technologies, new grain bills. So more to come for sure. No other flavors planned other than apple for now.
Okay.
We have tested the waters with some other ones that we think are nice. We think apple's the best at this point. It's the most timely.
Not going to argue with you on that. Jeff, this has been amazing today. And, we can't thank you enough for letting us be one of the first outside of the industry to sample this.
That
This
will
is
be true.
fantastic. So thank you very much, Jeff. And, of
Cheers.
course, we can't wait till next year already.
Right.
So
I'm looking forward to it. The 80th.
yes, the
Just around the
80th
corner.
will be huge. And as soon as we put these tickets on sale for the Jack Daniel's tasting next year, don't hesitate, okay?
And it goes to a great cause.
Yes, exactly. It all
Yeah.
goes to the Sturgis
Yeah.
Children's Charities here in Sturgis, too.
Yeah.
You guys have done a wonderful thing by helping out the people of Sturgis with this event as well, so we appreciate it.
We are trying to strong arm a couple people into letting us take whiskey at work to Nashville to pick out the next barrel.
All right. Hey, I'm there. 80% of the time I'm there.
Okay.
I'll be happy to
I'll make sure you are.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so
I'll
much
go through.
again.
I'll go through and get the best barrels for you guys.
Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you, Jeff. We appreciate it.
All right.
It is Whiskey at Work with Rob, Master Distiller Jeff Arnett, and me, Mark. Thank you so much for watching.